Coming up on today's show, we're going to discuss the idea of the Broncos trading Josey Jewell away. Now, I must admit, when I started this show, or started today, I did not think we would be talking about trading Josey Jewell, but I saw it on a fan-sided article, and at first I thought, that's a bit preposterous, but I think it does have some weight to it. So, like I said, Josey Jewell was included in a trade idea from Fansided that sends him to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, why are we discussing this, right? Well, Jewell is entering the last year of his 2-year, $11 million contract, so he will be a free agent at the end of the season, and if Denver has no plans of re-signing him, there could be something to trading him now and getting a pick before he's a free agent and you don't get anything at all. I don't think this idea is all that far-fetched. Like, I didn't initially think of it myself, but when you re-sign Alex Singleton to a 3-year, $18 million contract, which for Tier 2 off-ball linebackers is pretty good money. Like, he's not a Roquan Smith or a Fred Warner of the league, but 3 years, $18 million is a good chunk of change for a position that's somewhat dying as of late. And then you draft Drew Sanders, right? You use one of your first draft picks on the Arkansas linebacker. All of a sudden, you kind of have two starting linebackers right there, potentially, between Singleton and Sanders. So you could flip Jewell for a pick and still roll with two really good starting inside linebackers. This is what Lou from Fansided wrote. Jewell has injury concerns and is in the last year of his deal with the Broncos. The team drafting Sanders does make it seem like they are preparing for Jewell to leave in free agency. Well, if that's their plan, why not get a draft pick for him? So before we get even further into today's show, I want to get a bit of a pulse of everyone watching right now. What's the room temperature like on this? Do you guys think the Broncos should trade Josey Jewell? Of course, the big question is, what are you going to get in return? Because I'm not dying to trade good players away. And I think Jewell is a very good player. But I'm open to the idea because you have Singleton and you have Sanders. So you do have two really good linebackers that could fill in nicely and you won't miss a beat. So let me know in the comment section. This is the pinned comment. So scroll on down and give me your thoughts. My issue with this is you're not going to get what Josey Jewell is worth, in my opinion. I thought Josey Jewell was the most consistent player on this defense last year after Pat Surtain, right? Because it would be Justin Simmons, but even Simmons had to spend 4 games on IR last year. Now, Jewell was injured early on, but once he came on, I think it was the Texans game he made his debut. He had a sack or 2 against Houston, 7 tackles for loss altogether last year, 2 forced fumbles, 128 tackles. He was dynamite, right? I mean, the PFF grades back it up too. Overall grade of 71.7. They ranked him in the top half of all qualifying off-ball linebackers. Good run stopper, 79.6. By no means is Josey Jewell a top 5 inside linebacker. But for what you're paying him to be, he is definitely exceeding expectations in my eyes. So if it comes down to a rough idea of what a trade could look like, Denver gets a 5th-round pick from Pittsburgh. This is what Fansided suggested as a trade destination. And in exchange for a 5th-rounder, Steelers get Josey Jewell and a 7th-round pick. Now, I know that's not a very sexy return, but for an off-ball linebacker on the last year of his contract who did miss some time last year, let's face facts. You're not going to get a whole lot for Josey Jewell. And it's somewhat similar to what Denver did last year. Remember the Malik Reed trade right before the 53-man roster cut-down day? He went for a day 3 pick swap where Denver got a 6 and Pittsburgh got a 7th. So I think Josey Jewell is ahead of Malik Reed. And that's why I use this similar blueprint and just bump it up from a 6th to a 5th, which a 5th, I don't know. There's just something psychological about 6th and 7th kind of get lumped in together as like just the bottom of the beer. It's no good. No one likes it. But a 5th, that can be a bit tempting. So if you guys were the Peyton Brass, would you do this trade? Josey Jewell for a 5th more or less, because you're trading a future 7th. Who gives a shit? But let me know, would you do this trade, yes or no, in the comment section. Now that we have some framework for what a Josey Jewell trade could look like, a 5th, I'm tempted. Now, if it's a 6th or a 7th, I'm passing, because I don't want to get ahead of my skis here and just anoint Drew Sanders as a starting inside linebacker week 1 after a couple of OTAs and minicamp practices with no pads on. But a fifth for a team that doesn't have all their picks next year is a bit tempting. Remember, they still have they lost a third-round pick for the Riley Moss move-up draft selection. So if you can get a fifth for Josey Jewell entering the last year of his contract, by no means am I trying to trade Jewell away. I like Josey Jewell as a player, but I can also understand the pros and cons of last year of a contract has not always been the most available player, and the Drew Sanders hype train is full steam ahead right now. Now, before we get on to the rest of today's video, the Broncos retro t-shirts from Fanatics are still available, but they're not going to be available forever, so do not wait any longer and get your very own by going to chatsports.com/DENretro. I've included that link in the comments and the description of today's video. So snag yourself what I think is a pretty awesome Broncos retro t-shirt. You know, support your favorite team, rep your favorite squad, while also staying cool this summer by getting a retro throwback Broncos t-shirt. So getting into the weeds even further on this idea, if you're going to trade Josey Jewell away, you got to have some good replacement options. And sure, Drew Sanders would be a nice man up. I'm a big fan of the Drew Sanders selection. I think he's going to be a wrecking ball for this team. But you also have Jonas Griffith, who was a starting linebacker last year going into the season. Unfortunately, he could not stay healthy either. But if you can roll, if you're comfortable with Alex Singleton, Drew Sanders, and Jonas Griffith as your three-man linebacker crew with two starting, so a three-man rotation for two spots, and you want to get a pick in exchange, that's not the worst thing in the world, in my opinion. Now, if I had to predict which linebackers or inside linebackers end up making this 53-man roster, Singleton and Jewell, I think, do make it. I did see something in that article from Fanside about Jewell being a surprise cut candidate. I wouldn't be shocked if he got cut because there are some savings, but I don't think you cut good starting linebackers just to save a buck or two. Like, it's got to be some big savings, and that player has to be overpaid. I don't think that's the case with Josey Jewell. Drew Sanders, Jonas Griffith probably make, definitely Drew Sanders, but Griffith probably makes the roster as well. And then I got Justin Strnad and Seth Benson, the UDFA, going to the practice squad. So if you are open, if I'm talking to Sean Payton right now, moving Drew Sanders into the starting lineup and getting a good pick for it, I'm in, right? It comes down to what you get back in return for Josey Jewell. That's really the, line in the sand here. If you're getting a 6th or a 7th, no. I just think Josey Jewell is better than that, and you can go look at previous Broncos drafts and see who they selected in round 6 and 7. It's not glamorous. So I'm not here to trade Josey Jewell away just for the sake of trading him away. But I can't turn down a good deal. And if you're able to get a good pick in return and get more of Drew Sanders, because I'm a big fan of the Drew Sanders selection, those are win-wins in my book. But again, if you're not getting a good return and you're just doing the trade for the sake of doing the trade, I'll pass. Before we get on out of here, it is time for our summer hot take. Today's episode was filmed during our live show, by the way, every single Tuesday at 3 o'clock Mountain Time. So the weather boys said it would be 94 degrees in Denver, and that's scorching hot. So that's a first take hot take, and here's my first take hot take. Drew Sanders will be in low-level chatter for Rookie Defensive Player of the Year. He's not going to be a Vegas favorite or anything like that. But I think if Drew Sanders gets the opportunity to jump into the starting role, like trading Josey Jewell away or an injury pops up, he's going to make the most of that opportunity. So, like Micah Parsons, not the same player, but similar position going into their rookie season, he'll be a linebacker that's blitzing a lot, that comes off the edge and whatnot. And in that situation, I don't think Jewell's going to win Rookie of the Year as a defensive player or Defensive Rookie of the Year, but I think he's at least going to be in the conversation. There will be Vegas odds, and he won't be at the bottom. So that is my first take hot take. Thanks so much for tuning in. We will see everyone later.